Good evening, everyone. Hello and welcome to my first webinar, which is finally in English. My name is Lidia Machova, and I'm really excited that I can talk to you now about language learning and tell you about how language learning can be so much easier than most people think, and how it really is not such a difficult thing as so many people think out there. I mean, when we look at how many years we spend in schools, we would suppose that it must be something really difficult because we just keep going to courses over and over again, and somehow we cannot get fluent. But it is actually a lot easier if you know a few tricks, which I would like to share with you tonight. Now, I see that many of you are slowly getting online and you're really on time. That's amazing. I have to tell you honestly, I had some struggles, some difficulties because of the time zones. And so far, I only did my webinars in Slovakia. For Slovaks, we are all in one time zone because it's a really tiny country, so I never had any problem with that. And today, when I wrote to you that you can see the timer on my website and see how much time you have till the webinar, I realized later on, someone told me that unfortunately they see 10 hours till the webinar and it was only supposed to be 3. And I have no idea how that happened, but you know how it is. If you want things to work, then that's exactly where all the troubles come and you have to deal with many difficulties. So if you can hear me right now, then everything seems to be working. And it would be great to hear from you too. Unfortunately, you cannot all go on camera right now. There's several hundreds people watching already. But what you can do is write me a little comment, which I will be really glad to receive. So please go below this video and have a look at the comments on Facebook. If you have a Facebook account, that's the only way how you can comment, unfortunately, on this website. But the important thing is that you are logged in to your Facebook in the same window that you are watching this webinar. So if you only open the webinar, then please maybe open a new card, a new tab next to it and log into your Facebook so that I can read your comments. I would really love to see your comments and react to them later on. I know there will be a lot of questions, I'm sure, and a lot of comments. So I have my 2 great assistants who are writing down all the questions for me, and I will try to answer them before the end of this webinar to make sure that you get your answer about language learning. Okay, so I see that many of you are already there. I see Daniel, Nicolas, Maria, Yolanda, Nick, Min, Dante, Timur. That's amazing. Many of you are already there waiting. That's great. So if you have any question, or actually you could just tell me where you're from, where you're watching right now, just type a little comment and I will see if everything is working, if everything seems working just fine, and we will start in a second. Wow, Paul said he took off this time off work to attend to my webinar. Wow, I feel really honored, Paul. That's really amazing. And Brian is also ready with his coffee, so that's really cool. I hope, guys, that you will find something really inspirative, motivational in my webinar, because I basically want to tell you my story about how I learned 7 languages. And as I said at the beginning, it's really not something special that no one else could do. It doesn't take any special talent, any special approach, really. Actually, it's just the approach. If I would put it one way, I would just say it's just about the approach and basically regularity. Because learning a language takes some time and some energy, of course. It doesn't just come. And if you learn how to do it in a fun way and systematic way, that's when it can work really well. So let me start by introducing myself, because many of you don't know me. And so I have this presentation prepared for you. Hopefully you can see it on the main screen right now. And yeah, so who I am actually, and why should I tell you something about languages, right? My name is Lidia Machova, and I define myself as a language learner. This is my first thing when I tell people who I am, because these are the languages that I learned, and I will tell you about each and every one of them, one by one, and also the lessons that I took from learning them. As you will learn in my presentation, I did not attend any special schools. I was never abroad. My parents don't speak any foreign languages. I started at the age of 11. It was really no special coincidence for me to be able to speak languages from childhood. I learned them all by myself, living here in Slovakia without traveling. I traveled afterwards when I already spoke the languages, but you will see it really does not take any special talent, and that's why I believe that anyone else can do it just as well. I also happen to have studied languages. I studied English and German to become a professional conference interpreter. And I got really lucky because I got to interpret some really interesting personalities. One of them was Brian Tracy. Maybe you know him, the author of many books on personal development. His most famous theory or book is about eating the frog, meaning doing the most unpleasant thing in the morning. A really amazing speaker. I really enjoyed his seminar. And also Tony Robbins, who was very inspirational for me. He had an event for 7,000 people or 8,000 people in Poland, and I was one of the interpreters to interpret him into Slovak, which was really amazing as well. And basically, in my 6 years of working as an interpreter, I got to interpret a lot of politicians, a lot of really interesting people, including a shaman, just imagine, in the Peruvian jungle, who was healing people with a drug called ayahuasca. And this was just one of very bizarre or unusual experiences that I had as an interpreter. But this is just to let you know that I also have a background in languages. I did a PhD in languages, in interpreting studies. And so basically all my life, my adult life, has been about languages. But I don't interpret actively anymore because I have I would say, even a more interesting job, which is that of a language mentor. And that's basically why we are here. I decided to help people learn languages instead of teaching them, because I understood that the way I learn languages is really something that anyone can do if they know, if they have the know-how. And maybe what they need is just a little bit of know-how and a little bit of motivation. And that's why in the last 2 years, I've been very active in Slovakia. I've been doing a lot of live presentations, a lot of webinars like this in Slovak. I've had a lot of seminars, workshops, etc., where I explain all these methods in detail so that people can apply them in practice. And I have to tell you, I'm really happy that I can now say these things really work, not just for me. In the past, people could tell me that, you're so talented, this only works for you because, I don't know, you are talented, you're gifted, whatever. But now that I have thousands of people who have tried it in Slovakia, I can say, and I can be happy by myself by saying that it really does work if people change the attitude a little bit. And finally, just last piece of information about myself, and then we get to the language learning per se. I organized the Polyglot Gathering, actually the biggest polyglot event in the world, which happened this year and last year. It was in Bratislava. The 3 previous years were in Berlin. I was not one of the organizers in Berlin. And we had, let me see, 538 people attending in Bratislava this year. Most of them spoke about 5, 6 languages. So it was just amazing to see so many people who are interested in languages want to meet up for a few days. We all had little name tags, like you can see the one, the dog, even a dog had a name tag. And we basically just talked about languages and in languages and had 5 amazing days together. If you're interested in an event like this, you would like to come in person, then definitely please do come next year. It might be still in Bratislava or maybe somewhere around these countries, and we will be very happy to see you. And it doesn't matter how many languages you speak. What is important is the approach that you have to your language learning. Okay, let me see if everything is working fine, and hello to everyone who came a little bit later. I will just check if everything is perfectly working as it should be. So I see that more of you have written some comments, which is amazing. I'm really happy to see that. And again, if you have some questions, I will answer them later on. So feel free to write just a little hi or even a question, as you can, whichever suits you better. I see some people had some problems with the webinar time zones. I'm really sorry. I hope that most of you could make it on time. Several hundred people are watching already, so I think it should be working fine. Okay, so let's get to my language journey, which I would like to share with you. This is the most important part of this webinar, because I would like to tell you really step by step how I learned these 7 languages and why you can do just the same thing as well. So the first language that I started with was English, and I've been working on it ever since. I started when I was 11, and as I said, didn't have any special conditions to learn because of my parents or something. And I went in the most typical school way that you can imagine. So I attended classes and I had lessons with a teacher, and we would work with a book and listen to some recordings and speak now and then. I mean, you know, the school system. It's not very effective if you want to really speak the language, but it's the best we have. So unfortunately, that was the way I was learning. And I didn't know that I could learn languages by myself at that time. I was just 11, and I thought, if I want to learn a language, I have to go to school and the teacher will teach me the language, right? This is the usual approach that people have. And then an interesting thing happened. One day, I saw a classmate of mine reading Harry Potter in English. And we were learning English at that time for just 2 years, I think. And we were at a really beginner level. I mean, 2 years after just school education with no extra lessons or extra learning is not that effective. So I was really surprised. I was like, how come you're reading a book in English? Because the thing is, she was much worse at school than me. She had much worse grades. And I thought that's unfair. How come she can read a book and me not? So I took it as a challenge, which I accepted, because she even said that she only doesn't understand about 1 or 2 words every 4 or 5 pages, and all the rest is perfectly clear to her. She understands 100%. And I was like, how's that possible? That's really impossible. I have to try it out myself and see if that works for me too. So that was my challenge that I took. I went with my parents to another city, which had a bigger bookstore, and we bought this Harry Potter book because Harry Potter was the best book we were reading at that time. And I started reading it. And then this was the first miracle that I ever experienced with learning languages, because the beginning was really difficult. I mean, you can imagine after 2 years of school education, trying to read a book right away was pretty difficult. But I have to say, I was so surprised that after just a few weeks, really, I think it took me maybe a month or maybe 2 months before I understood more and more. And at the end of the book, I could read the book no problem in English, because all of these words were repeating and repeating. And I really didn't have any problem to follow that book. And I just didn't understand it. It was so amazing for me. I learned a lesson from this, and that is that I can use authentic materials almost from the start, from the get go. I don't have to wait to see when my English is good enough or perfect or whatever. I can start almost from the beginner level. And I applied this technique afterwards for every other language that I use, because I understood that you really don't need much to read a book, because the vocabulary that is used there is basically repeating over and over again. Like 80% of the words that you read in books normally, they are like the most, let's say 2,000 or 3,000 most frequent words in a language. So you really don't need much to read in a foreign language. And I realized that the more I read, the more I understand. So this was really, for me, a breakthrough, because I just understood that I can read authentic materials right away. And really, this, for me, at the age of 13, was quite a change, because no teacher ever told me, oh, why don't you read a Harry Potter book? They would all say like, oh, well, this is still difficult for you, maybe you could go for easier stuff like that. But then I understood I have to read a lot, and I have to pick the book that I love. So that was my lesson. With the second language, that was German, I started learning it when I was 15. And basically, I have to tell you honestly, I did not like it very much at the beginning. The first 2 years I spent learning it, I was like, nah, it's not the nicest language in the world. And do I actually have to study it? I did not really pick it myself. It was one of the languages that we were supposed to learn. And yeah, so I ended up learning for 2 years, but I didn't have any special like relationship to German at that time, unfortunately. And it all changed very dramatically after 2 years again of learning German at school, because I said, you know what, I really need to focus on German now, because I want to study English one day. And in Slovakia, you can only study to become a translator or interpreter if you have two languages at once. So I realized that I had to put some energy into German. And I said, like, I really need lot more input. I need to have more fun with it, not just the usual books and the texts that are used in the lessons. And so I decided to watch TV. But if I had just told myself, okay, I will watch TV in German, I think it would take me maybe 2 or 3 days and then I would just give it up because it was super difficult. I did not understand almost anything. But I was clever enough after my experience with English, and I decided that I will make it a regular thing, and I will basically create a plan like the one you see in the picture, where I will put a little tick in this chart if I manage to watch TV for half an hour on that day. So you see, I put the individual weeks in rows, and then Monday, Tuesday, etc. in columns. And every day I would have to put a tick. And I had this paper in front of me on the wall next to my bedside table, and I would have to put the tick in there. And I can tell you again, just like with Harry Potter at the beginning, it was super difficult to read it. I'm sorry, to watch it at the beginning because I almost didn't understand anything. It could have been Turkish or Chinese to me. I really did not get much. Again, after 2 years of just school exposure to the language. But magic started to happen after about, again, 6, 7, 8 weeks. I started to understand more and more of the series. I got really interested in them, and I wanted to see, what will happen. I started to get curious about the series, not about the language. And so my lesson with German was that I really just need a systematic plan, and it can do wonders because I just need to do this little step every day. I don't have to have the whole plan or, realize what I will be doing for 2 years with the language. I just have to tell myself I will do a little bit every day. And step by step, I will gather so much of this input, of this text, of this listening, that step by step the language will become clearer. And that's exactly what happened with German as well. I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised to see that. And yeah, that was my lesson from German. My third language was Spanish, and I started with that when I was at the university already. I was an adult, I was studying English and German, and I signed up for a course. At the beginning, I really did not understand that I can learn languages totally by myself. I just thought I can do something little here, a little thing there, and it will help me. But I never thought that I could learn a language by myself. So I signed up for this course at the university, and I have to tell you that the teacher was really, really not good, to put it mildly. I think it was a super ineffective course. I don't think the teacher herself was very, very good at Spanish or as a teacher. And besides, it was 25 people in the class. So I think it was hopeless from the beginning. But the most important thing is, I decided to do something at home because I already had the book, right? And I said, why don't I continue with the grammar explanations and little text step by step? And who knows, maybe I will be able to get somewhere, and then I can have another course or something like that. And I got back to my favorite book, which was Harry Potter. And this time I tried a different thing. I decided to spend 20 minutes every day before going to sleep listening to an audiobook of Harry Potter and reading the same book of Harry Potter in Spanish at the same time. Just reading and listening at the same time, nothing else. I did not check the translations. I did not check the Slovak book. I did not go through the grammar. I did not worry about it at all. And really, again, the same experience happened exactly just like with English and German. I understood more and more and more. And by the end of the book, I was reading it almost as if it was in Spanish. And that was again fascinating for me because I understood that it just takes a lot of regular time. But I did another thing with Spanish, which was actually even more of a breakthrough. I realized that I need to speak more because with Spanish, I did not have anyone to talk to. In English and German, I had, lessons at school and a teacher, so that was possible. But with Spanish, I didn't have any teacher at all. So I decided to look for a tutor that I would talk to. Her name was Gabby. She was Mexican. And I basically understood that the conversations we had is exactly what helped me get fluent in Spanish in a super fast way. I couldn't believe it. I think that after, let me see, half a year from when I started learning Spanish, I was seriously able to have a fluent conversation in Spanish. And I was so shocked because I wouldn't believe ever that you can learn a language in half a year. I thought you would have to go live in the country, or your parents would have to speak the language, or I don't know what. You would have to have a lot of paid lessons. But this was not the case. And I realized that what helped me more than the conversations with Gabby were natural situations, because we became friends very quickly. And she would tell me, like, you want to go shopping? And it was easier for her to speak in Spanish than in English. So she would speak Spanish all the time with me, and I wanted to reply. So I replied, in a very broken Spanish, but getting hour after hour of practice in this way. And after half a year, I was seriously able to follow almost everything she was saying. And I was just couldn't believe that it happened so quickly. So my lesson with Spanish was that if you have someone to talk to you in a way which interests you naturally, this is why the gift picture is in here as an example of when someone is interested in your conversation, that's when your speaking skills go up like crazy. I honestly didn't believe that it can happen so quickly. My lesson from Spanish was that regular speaking sessions really help you get fluent so much faster. You need to make sure that you speak very, very regularly from the beginning. Many people make the mistake that they are waiting for a moment when they will be good enough to speak. And this is the biggest problem you can make, because you will never really be at that level in order to speak fluently. You can only get there through practice, which is the same thing as with, I don't know, driving a car, playing any sports, dancing salsa, whatever activity you take. If you wait with your driving to the point when you are a perfect driver, then I think you agree with me that you would never drive a car, right? Because what you need is practice. And that's exactly what happens with speaking as well. So Spanish was my first language where I understood that if I speak a lot from the beginning, I can get fluent really fast. And that's when the magic happens. Because, of course, after being able to speak after just half a year, I think that there can be nothing more motivational than that, right? By the way, guys, I forgot to tell you one thing. If you want to write me anything during the conversation, please do in the comments, and not just because you would like to say hi, but also because I'm going to draw one of you. So one of the lucky winners, who at the end of my presentation will win a free course from me. So I would really like you to be active and comment in any way you like. I will read the comments, maybe not all the time because I cannot, I don't see it right away, but I will definitely go through them and try to answer all the questions. So if you have any questions or just want to say hi, please do. And we will pick someone who will win a course afterwards, okay? Just wanted to tell you that. Let's continue with my lessons of learning Spanish. And one more thing I forgot to say. I know that all of you who came live also are probably excited about a little present that I prepared for you, and you will get it also at the end of the webinar, okay? So just saying we haven't forgotten about that, it will just come a little bit later. Okay, let's continue. This was my third language, Spanish. My fourth language was Polish. And I thought, again, it was 2 years later, I realized that I want to learn a language for 2 years and then move on to another one. And with Polish, I was a bit cocky. I thought that it's such a similar language to mine. I can easily learn it, even less than half a year. I won't even need that much time, because Slovak is my mother tongue and Polish is pretty similar. It's basically almost the same endings, just a little bit different grammar. I can do that. But then this is how I felt learning Polish. I hope you can see it well. This little dog is like a little dog climbing the stairs, almost there, almost there, but then falling back again, because learning Polish as a Slovak person is not that easy. It's not almost the same language. And what you actually need is speak much more than with any other language, especially because these languages are similar. And this was my lesson from Polish. I learned that speaking is even more important. This output that you give when you're practicing a language is even more important when the languages are similar. If you have that problem, if you are, let's say, Spanish speaking and you want to learn another Romance language like French or Italian, you might have the same problem actually. It's so easy to understand, right? Like you hear other people speaking in the language, you learn a little bit of the grammar and some basic words, and you can understand. It's pretty cool. But in order to really speak in the language, that takes a lot more energy, because our brain kind of wants to put in the words that we know that are, supposed to be there. But this language is a little bit different, and that's when the brain goes like, wait, am I speaking this language or that language? And that's why I think practicing speaking is even more important, because the more you practice speaking, the more your brain kind of differentiates, okay, this is this language, this is that language. I can express these things using the vocabulary that I have. So, as for Polish, this was my experience, and Polish became my most difficult language, I would say. It was definitely not the easiest because of all the complex grammar. I really tried to learn all the grammar. I spent a lot of time with it, and later, I even studied in Poland. I spent a semester in Sosnowiec and Krakow, which were really, really amazing times. And I even interpreted from Polish into Slovak. So I got my level pretty high, but it took a lot of work, of course, because the languages seemed to be closer than they really were. Now, French was my language number 5. Again, it took about 2 years to learn it. And my lesson from learning French was basically very simple. Up to that point, I did not realize how important listening was. And French was the first language where I actually failed at learning by myself, because it didn't make any sense to me. I have to say, honestly, when I was going through the French book, I was so confused. I was like, why do they have so many consonants in there and so many vowels that they don't need? Why do they even put them in the word if they don't need them, if they don't pronounce them, right? I was a bit angry with the language, I have to say. And I didn't understand almost anything because everything was pronounced differently. So French is a language that I started learning and then quit. It was a few years before. And then I said, okay, I am going to learn that language because I can, and there must be a way. So what I did is I got the Michel Thomas course. I don't know if you know it, but for me it's one of my most favorite courses that are out there. Michel Thomas, and it's basically an audio recording where you listen to Michel Thomas speaking in English and telling little phrases in French, and you repeat him. You repeat the phrases after him, and then he tests you again, like from English to French, English French, and you don't even know how, but after a few lessons with him, you're able to say a few sentences in French, and it's really fascinating. And that's exactly what happened, what helped me a lot with learning French. And right after the Michel Thomas, I started listening massively. All possible podcasts that are out there, just listening massively, so I can catch up with the little difference in French, which is that spelling and pronunciation are different. And so I read a lot of books, of course, and I tried to speak as much as possible, but listening was for me one thing which in learning French was the most important thing in order to be able to understand the language well. And I understood that you really have to put in a lot of hours in order to understand. It doesn't just come like that. It would be nice if you could just listen to a recording once and you would understand everything, but all it actually takes is a bit more regular contact with French. So my lesson is that listening is, I would say, really, with speaking, one of the most important things to do, but it's also one of the easiest. And that's because it's so easy to listen to something, right? Just put on the headphones and maybe you go somewhere. I like to listen to podcasts when I go to work or when I go jogging, when I do the dishes at home, etc. It's really simple to find time for listening. I don't think it's very difficult. And yeah, that's what I took as my lesson from learning French. Let's continue. My sixth language was the Slovak Sign Language. And I learned this one for 2 years by attending a course in here in Bratislava in Slovakia. Um, but unfortunately, this is the only language that I totally forgot. I totally lost it, and I'm so sorry about it because I loved it. I loved attending the classes and learning all these signs, which are often very logical. Uh, for example, I don't know if you know, but the sign language uses a lot of logical signs, such as this in the Slovak sign language is March, because in March in Slovakia it's getting warmer, and so you take off your gloves. It's pretty cute, right? Or maybe this one will be clear to some of you, but not all of you. This one is May, because we have a tradition here, as in many European countries, to put a May tree on the 1st of May. And this is what guys do in front of girls' houses. They put up a tree. So May in the Slovak sign language is like that. But that's just, on the side. The thing with the Slovak sign language is that I totally lost it. And I would like to tell you why, because I think this really explains why so many people actually forget a language and they lose it totally. Well, not totally, but they feel like they completely forgot and they cannot use it at all. Basically, I like to explain it on a metaphor. Do you know the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks? I don't have a picture here, unfortunately, but he was basically was left on an island, and he couldn't get out of it because he had a little boat and he was trying to get over the waves, but they would always get him back to the island, right? And the first ones were not so difficult, but the last ones at the end were like impossible to get over. And this is exactly what happens with language learning. I think this is the perfect metaphor to show. Imagine that if you're starting to learn a language, you're on this island. And what you want to do is to get out in the ocean so that you can enjoy, the world where everybody speaks English, or the world where people speak German or French or whatever language. And so you take a little boat and you started rowing from the island towards the ocean. And at the beginning, it's super easy because there's just these little waves that you can overcome easily, right? But what happens then is the bigger waves come. And then the very big waves, which you can see around the island, these are the ones which are furthest away from the island. And this is the tricky part, because if you don't continue rowing your boat at this moment, if you give up for some time, if you'd say like, nah, it's summer holiday, or I will start learning in 2 or 3 months or whatever, your boat will necessarily get back to the island because the waves will keep coming. And this is the tricky thing about language learning. Unfortunately, it's not such a process which you would only do for a few weeks and then you keep your level because you did a certificate of B1 or B2 and you don't have to do anything else. Unfortunately, you have to keep rowing, that means working on the language, up to the point where you get over the last wave. And when you are over the last wave, you are on the calm ocean and you don't have to worry that much anymore. Do you know why? Because you achieve the level of so-called comfortable fluency. That means that you can use the language pretty comfortably without thinking about it too much. And this only ever happens if you spend enough time working up to that level and staying on that level for a few months, or I would say months, then definitely not years. So what happens in all my languages is I basically went up with them. I tried to achieve a high level. And what many people do as a mistake here, they stop at that moment. They go like, yay, I have the certificate. That's it, I'm done. But what is so much more important is that at this very moment, you don't let go and you continue working on that language for a few more months. And then when you have this comfortable fluency for a few months, that's when you can actually afford not to use the language for a few months, even years, and it will get back to that level when you start using it. So you just need to activate it. This is my situation with all my languages now. I'm not on the perfect level or on my best level in all my languages. For example, my French is right now pretty deactivated. I would say I don't use it almost at all. So when someone comes, I need a bit more time to get accustomed to the level of French that I used to have. But it will come because I worked up to that moment for 2 years and did it in very pleasant ways, like by reading stuff and listening to TV series and listening to podcasts and speaking to people, etc. Right? So this is exactly what happened to me with the Slovak Sign Language. This is the reason why I lost the language, is because I did not achieve comfortable fluency in it. I just attended this course for 2 years. I was starting to get fluent in signing in the Slovak Sign Language, but then I did not continue with it, unfortunately. And that's why I kind of lost it, which I'm sorry about right now. Okay, let me continue with another language, Esperanto. I don't know if you ever heard about this language. It's an artificial, it's a made-up language, which is, I think, one of the, or actually the easiest language in the world. It was created in 18, let me see, 1887, so it's more than 100 years old. And it's really fascinating because it's super regular. It doesn't have any exceptions in grammar. It's really, really simple. And basically what I learned from this language is the is that how achievement can motivate you. Because Esperanto is so easy, you can literally learn it in a few weeks if you are putting some work into it, maybe a few months if you are, let's say, taking it really slowly. But it will probably not take you more than 3 or 4, 5 months to learn this language. And this will be the feeling you will have after you speak Esperanto, because you will be like, wow, I can speak a new language. That's amazing. With just a few weeks of work. And I think that this is exactly the feeling that helps people most when they want to learn a new language. This is why polyglots keep learning a new language on and on again, because you actually kind of get addicted to the feeling of achieving yet another language and achieving fluency in it, you know? And I really believe that nothing motivates us more than our own success. So if we achieve success in any language basically, or in that language in a little part, like if we can finally say something, if we finally understand something, that's the thing that's going to motivate us most to continue learning. And that's why that's how I understood that people really need to have a little bit of success, and this success only comes again if you put more work into it in a short time. The problem that many people have, the mistake that many people make, is that they try to learn a language, a little bit here, a little bit there. Maybe they, sorry, I'll just take a sip of water. Maybe they want to attend a course and they will do it once a week or maybe twice a week, but that's all they do. And if you don't feel any improvement in yourself, if you don't feel that you have gotten somewhere in that language, then it's never going to it's never going to be enough. You're always going to take these little steps, step by step, and you will not feel any improvement. It will not motivate you to keep on learning, unfortunately. So what I think is really crucial in language learning is to give it more of your energy in a short time. Maybe not learn once a week or twice a week, but rather every day in little steps, and have this amazing feeling, just like the baby in the picture, feeling victorious about your own achievement. And that's when I think language learning can become really fascinating. My eighth language, I'm sorry, there is a little mistake. The eighth language I learned was Russian. And I was 26 years old when I started learning it. I'm 29 today. And yeah, with Russian, I took another lesson. And that was not learning the traditional way based on grammar. I think we all agree that grammar mostly is quite boring. I mean, there are people, of course, out there who like grammar, who enjoy it. But for most people, grammar rules and all these exceptions are pretty boring. And you know what I decided to do with Russian? I decided to do it completely differently. I realized that grammar is not the most important thing. And instead, I wanted to spend more time discovering the language. I don't even, up until today, I don't even have a book of Russian grammar at home. And I would say, of course, I make some mistakes in my Russian, but I would say that I can communicate normally and people understand me. It's no problem. And of course, I know it helps that I'm a Slavic person and I also speak Polish. I don't deny that. But still, it was very different, a very different experience from learning Polish. Because with Polish, I would be really strict with the grammar and learn all the differences and all these exceptions. And with Russian, I would just take exercises and go through them and just guess what could be the passive tense in these sentences. Just guessing based on a lot of reading and listening that I had done before. This is very important. You cannot guess if you are just starting with grammar, but you can guess easily if you have already heard and read a lot of the language before. And when I had a problem, so when I didn't understand why is it here, like why is this the correct answer and not another one, that's when I looked up the grammar point in the book. So I basically reversed my grammar learning. I did not start with the definitions, but instead I went through the exercises, and when something was not clear, then I would look it up and yeah, and have a look at the grammar explanation, maybe a few more exercises, and it worked really amazingly. Learning grammar for me was fascinating. It was fun. I was not bored by it. I didn't have any problem with it. So I just really enjoyed grammar in this way. That was my lesson with Russian. And my final language, again, I apologize for the wrong number. It's number 9. That is Swahili. I am learning this African language right now. I started this year. And I understood that even as a person who has so much experience learning languages, I still kind of struggle sometimes to do it totally by myself. Because you see, it's I think it takes a little bit of self-discipline, which many people have, many people don't. I would say in general, I do have self-discipline, but not it doesn't always work out. Sometimes I feel lazy myself, or I feel that I want to do something else. I don't want to learn every day, etc. But I actually realized how much it helps me if other people help me in this learning process. And this is what happened in January this year. I started learning by myself, but it was not very regular, and I was doing everything else, just not learning regularly. And then we started our Autodidacts Academy. It's a program that I'm also going to tell you about, where 50 people are learning together, and we are letting each other know how we're doing and what we did, and we are checking on each other. And that's what started my learning right away. On the first day of the academy, where I basically said to other people publicly that I'm going to learn, that's when I started to learn really, really greatly. And that was the thing that I needed to help me move on with the language learning. And actually, the same thing happened now, not even a month ago, where I had another little decrease in motivation. It was after the last academy, and I was learning by myself again, and I was struggling a little bit. And then my polyglot friend Lucas came by, and he said, "Why don't we learn the language together? It will be fun. We can motivate each other, we can help each other, and experiment a little bit with the methods." And I said, "Sure, let's do it." And now I feel so motivated to learn. I'm using the Asimil book. If some of you probably know it, it's actually pretty good. It's a very good method. It's a French publishing house, which is based on translations from the language you're learning, so Swahili in this case, and the translations into the language you understand. In my case, it's French because that's the only Swahili version they have. And basically, you just go through the lessons, you read the text in Swahili, and for the first 50 chapters, you are just trying to understand what they're saying based on the translations and some grammar explanations. And after the 50 lessons, you go back at the beginning and you start translating from your language into the language you're learning, and you will actually be surprised how much you can do right now. This is a fascinating method. It's very similar to the method that I have been using for my other languages without even knowing about Asmil. It's called the back translation method, where I again translate from my language to the target language. And I think this is really powerful because you actually test how well you can translate stuff actively. You see, the problem that many people have with language learning is that they understand quite a lot, but they cannot say that themselves, right? You probably also have that problem if you've been learning some language for some years. You probably understand quite a lot, but saying it actively is quite difficult. And that's exactly why this type of translations into your target language help a lot. So I always say people should always try to learn into the target language and not the other way around. So this is basically the lessons that I took from learning my 9 languages. I was trying to pick something special from each of them, but basically in all of them, I keep coming up with the same realizations. And I would like to show you how that works by showing you the 5 biggest mistakes that people do in language learning. But before we get there, let me just briefly check if everything is working fine. Okay, I see that many of you are also commenting on YouTube directly. That's okay. We seem to have some technical problems on the website, and I'm sorry about that. If you are watching on YouTube, then please move on to the website which I gave to you in the email, because that's where I can also see your comments or questions and answer them directly. Okay. If you cannot for whatever technical reason, then I'll try to catch up with you with the questions on YouTube as well. But questions below the video, which would be much better. By the way, thank you for so many amazing questions. I can't wait to reply to them. But let me get back to the 5 biggest mistakes, and I'll be right with your questions in a second. Okay. So just a sec. Back. Yes. So let's have a look at the 5 biggest mistakes in learning a language. And yes, they are this big, just like you see the baby in the picture. So shocking. The first biggest mistake is that some people just expect that someone else will teach them. And I swear, guys, this is the biggest problem of language learning in the world. And that's why my message of language mentoring is you need to take your learning into your own hands. If you are like this dog in the picture, if you wait for someone to move you, to teach you the language, to give you the fluency that you want, it's never going to happen. I really don't believe in teaching a language. I don't believe it works. And I'm so sorry that so many people expect a teacher to teach. It doesn't work. It works in a very different way where you can learn yourself. So that's the thing number one. The second one is if you're bored with your language learning because the texts are not so interesting, because the exercises are not that interesting, and the material was picked by someone else for you, and you kind of just wait and receive it. Again, this is similar to the first mistake, but this basically means if you are working with materials which you don't like, it's never going to work. I know a lot of people who are trying to learn a language by themselves, and they tell me they are using this book. And I tell them why. Because I see, when I ask them a few questions, I see they don't like the book at all. And they say, oh, well, we used to have this book back at school and I had it at home. I said, come on, the internet is so full of materials now. Like, you do really want to use this book just because you happen to have it at home? You really need to find something that you will enjoy. Otherwise, it's never going to help you much. The third big mistake is just being in touch with the language in school or in a language course. I know that this is a very frequent way how people learn languages, and there's nothing wrong with it. Going for a course, having a teacher is perfect, and I don't want to tell people you shouldn't do it. I think it's great because it's regular, because the teacher can answer all your questions, can talk to you. It's perfect. If you want to attend a course and you're happy with it, do it. But make sure that this is not your only contact with the language. Make sure that your language learning does not happen only in the classroom, because if it does, again, it's not going to help you much. You really need to find new ways of what you can do with the language outside of the lessons, just like the ones I mentioned, reading books, watching TV series, for example, listening to podcasts, etc., etc. The fourth great mistake is having wrong methods or ineffective methods. If you are learning your vocabulary like this, trying to rote memorize it and learn it because tomorrow you have the test and you want to write all the words correctly, this is never going to work because your brain couldn't care less about these methods. It doesn't learn stuff if you cram it into your brain like this. It just never works. A much better way is to take it easy and use methods which are, meant for long-term learning. And by these methods, I mean repeated exposure to the language in a natural way by reading, by listening, by speaking, by writing. If you don't do that, and if you just learn the words very quickly at once, you're going to forget them within a week or two, for sure. It doesn't work like that. And the fifth mistake that people make is being very chaotic in their learning, not having a system, not having a plan. If your learning looks something like this in the picture, then of course you're never going to get anywhere with the language, right? Because you just don't have a plan. And without a plan, if how is that saying? If a boat doesn't know where to go, how can it ever get there, right? If you don't have a set course for your learning, then you can never achieve anything, and it will be very haphazard, very chaotic, just like in the picture. So A very different way of how you can do it is basically creating your own method of learning. And this is, we are now getting to the most important part of my whole language learning philosophy. um, what I want people to do and what I tell people to do, and works really, really well with them, is putting their own method together, um, and not following a simple one method that they found somewhere. What you can do, as an example, is that you decide that you want to work on, let's say, four priorities or four areas of your language learning, and not with all of them. So let's say you really want to work on your vocabulary. And for that, you will choose a method called the gold list method. I'm sure most of you have heard about the method. It's basically a system where you write vocabulary into a book, and then you write it every 2 weeks. And you realize that you have learned 30% of the vocabulary. It's really fascinating. It's so simple, and it works amazingly if you do it right. I will not have time to explain it right now, but if you if you entered my website, you probably received these videos by email already. If not, then you can still do it on my website and sign up for free videos about the gold list method. And this is a completely different way of learning vocabulary, which works much better, because it's a systematic way of improving your vocabulary. So let's say to improve vocabulary, you work with the gold list method. And in order to practice your speaking, because that's very important for you too, you will find a colleague at work with whom you will start speaking regularly, let's say 2, 3, 4 times a week over lunch, nothing more. And maybe he or she is the native speaker of the language you're learning, and maybe not. I know a lot of Slovaks who do this. Two Slovaks meet for lunch and decide to speak in English or German, just for practicing. You can get a lot of practicing time very easily without paying anything, without any special problem. As for listening, you could pick one of the methods, which would be podcasts. Again, there's a lot of things you can do. You can watch TV series, you can watch YouTube, you can listen to other recordings that you find online, or just simple podcasts, which is the easiest because you can have it on your phone very easily. And this will be your method for improving your listening. And finally, if you want to improve your reading, then you can pick a favorite blog that you like and start reading articles from it on a regular basis. And this is an example of how I learn languages and how I think it works best. And I think this is the most natural method you can have, because you pick the things that you like. This is so important. No one tells you that you have to do the gold list method because it's effective. You pick it because you want to do it and you're interested in it. And you pick it because you find growing your vocabulary important. Maybe some people will not do that because they are very stressed with the fact that they need to work on their vocabulary like that. And instead, they will practice their speaking, listening, and writing, instead. So it doesn't matter what you pick. In a certain period of time, you should definitely concentrate on just 3 or 4 areas, not more, and try to grow them on a systematic basis. And there are just 4 things that you need to have in mind when putting this ideal method together. There are 4 rules to follow. First of them, and I've mentioned it several times, it needs to be fun. So that's why I work with Harry Potter when I was learning English and Spanish and basically all the languages that I learn. I always go for materials which I enjoy myself, because if it's not fun, if it's just a text that happened to be in the book, then it's not going to help me. It's not going to give me much because my brain will not be interested in learning at all. So fun is the first principle. The second most important thing is having intensive contact with the language. Many people make the mistake and they think that a little bit of learning is enough, but unfortunately it isn't. Let's get back to the example of me watching TV, German TV at home. I give it half an hour every day. And that's how I managed to understand German after 1 or 2 months very well. Of course, after learning some German before, not starting from the very beginning, because I put all the intensive contact in play, and I had all the exposure to the German language, which I did not have before. So it needs a lot of contact as well. Then the third pillar is effective methods. If you are learning with effective methods, such as the gold list method, or using Enki, an app for space repetition system, or listening to podcasts in an effective way, not just listening, but maybe also shadowing the recordings, etc. If you do it an effective way, then it's going to work out so much better. And how do you know if something is effective? In general, I suggest that you follow polyglots methods, because polyglots are usually experts at learning in a really effective way, very fast, very effectively. So whatever methods they mention, you can pick whatever polyglot you see out there, because there's many of us trying to help people learn languages. You just follow their methods and it's going to work for sure. But the final thing you need is having a system, because we are lazy as people, and if we don't create a system in the learning, we are probably going to leave all these amazing ideas behind, because we don't have the willpower every day to decide, I'm going to learn, I'm going to learn. If you have a system, such as a simple one, such as the one I had for German, you put it on a wall, it's going to be super simple for you to learn any language, because you will do just little small steps every day. 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. It's all that's going to take. So that's basically the most important thing about my methodology. These four things are the pillars of my language learning philosophy. And this is the answer to the question how I learned all these languages. I basically keep doing the same thing over and over again, always with slightly different methods and slightly different combination of methods. Sometimes I'm more interested in reading, sometimes I'm more into listening, but then after a few months, I switch these priorities and try to work on the other ones. And I always try to find interesting material out there and work with it systematically. This is all the recipe. This is basically all it takes to learn a language. And as I told you, I now know that thousands of people have been doing it the same way in Slovakia, because yeah, this is, I think this is really a very universal recipe. It doesn't take any special talent or any special approach. Just doing this on a regular basis. Now, does that make sense to you? I hope it does. Please let me know in the comments. I would really love to see if everything was clear, if I haven't been speaking here with people going like, what are you talking about? I hope I'm making myself clear. Wow, we have so many comments already. Thank you so much for all of them. Again, I'm going to get to the questions by the end for sure. And I see one question very quickly. Is Michel Thomas like Pimsleur? Yes, but I personally believe Michel Thomas is even better than Pimsleur. I use both of them to learn French and start with some other languages. But I think Michel Thomas moved me forward much faster, because it was more vocabulary and it was just, in general, better, I would say. And I think it's also cheaper. So that's Michel Thomas. Okay. As I said, I will get to all the questions but before we get there, one important thing I promised in the description of the webinar, and this is a question that I suppose has already appeared among the questions, and that is whether you can learn or how you can learn two languages at once, right? This is a question that interests most people, and I have a reply to it, which may be a little bit surprising. But my reply or my advice to it is don't learn two languages at the same time. And that is because if you have a certain amount of time that you can give to your language learning, then this is the time that you are going to divide between two languages necessarily. Even if you, let's say, if you say that you will spend a lot of time learning languages, let's say 3 hours every day or 4 hours every day, if you give those 4 hours to one language, it's going to grow so much faster, so much bigger in a short time. And it will help you so much more, because it will be super motivational, and your brain will just go like that. It will just learn vocabulary and listening, reading, everything will just make sense very quickly. But if you divide it into two languages, then in both of them, you're going to go half as slow. And I really honestly believe that this feeling of accomplishment is the most important thing that helps in language learning. And I seriously think this is the secret of polyglots, actually, because many polyglots have the same story. They were really bad at language learning up to their adult life. Then they started doing something differently, and suddenly they started learning one language after another, right? And because they got somehow addicted to learning the language. So that's why I really, really recommend people to concentrate on one language at one time. But I know that many of you are attending classes or have a situation where you really need to work on two languages at the same time. And in that case, I would just recommend that you give 80% of your focus in a given 2 month or 3 month period of time to one language, and then 20% of your attention to the other language, kind of to keep it up. Let's say if you were trying to keep up a language which you already speak pretty well, maybe English or something you were learning back at school, you could just watch some series and maybe have some conversations with someone every second or third week, right? That would be the 20%. And in order to improve your active language, you would do more active stuff, such as working with a gold list, watching series, listening to podcasts, reading something, speaking, right? So this is the difference where I really recommend to concentrate on one language and not give it 50% of your attention. Okay, hope that makes sense. If you have a different opinion about this or different ideas how you can do it, then please write to me. My experience is that people often try to learn 2 or 3 languages, even 3 at the same time, and it is possible. It's like for your brain, this is no big problem. It's not like, oh, how will it not mix up, etc. I don't think this is the real problem. The problem is that you will spend so little time with each of them that you will be demotivated, because after learning for half a year, you will not feel like learning after half a year in comparison to when you learn the language by yourself, right? Okay. Let me answer a few questions before I get to the other part of the webinar. So let's see, Nick Wood is asking, what have you been doing for fun to keep from getting too bored with language learning in order to be renewed to start again on learning tomorrow? So if I'm bored with a language, I suppose, Nick, you mean if I am using some methods and I don't like these methods anymore, right? Basically, if I'm like really struggling and my motivation is low, I try to come up or just use those methods which are simple, which don't take much of my energy. For example, watching series. That's I think this is one of the easiest ones and one of the pleasant ones for me. And I try to maybe find a new resource. This is what usually helps me. Even with Swahili, I was before learning from the Teach Yourself Swahili, which was cool and I liked it. But I got to a point where I just couldn't move on somehow. I lost the motivation, I told you, after the 2 months. And then just a simple thing, such as changing the book to something else, totally changed my motivation, and now I like it. This book is not necessarily better than the Teach Yourself, but it was something different. So I think if you can, just make a little change in the materials, that's going to help a lot in general. Okay, let me see another question. Can I learn language without losing patience? Entertainment Unterhaltung Gifhau is asking, can I learn language without losing patience? My problem is that I want to learn fast and I have no patience. Well, if your expectations are unreal, meaning that you want to learn language in a month or 2, then that's not going to happen, unfortunately. And there is no way around it. I'm afraid that there is no super huge shortcut in language learning, because speaking a foreign language, it's quite a complex activity. You need to know a lot of words and be able to use them, understand the relationship between them, etc. So if you are thinking of doing it super fast, it will not happen. But if you set yourself for thinking, you know what, I can give it 2 months of my time and see where it gets me, and then decide if I want to continue, I think this is much, much easier. Because losing patience is a problem if you have this whole area in front of you and you feel like, oh my God, I'm going to be learning forever and I'm never going to get anywhere. Instead, if you give yourself a little goal, like, okay, I'm just going to give it 2 months, see if I can have a little conversation afterwards, and then continue, I think that makes it much easier. Okay, let me continue in my presentation now, and we'll get to more questions afterwards. Feel free to keep writing them. Also on YouTube, I now know that there is a technical problem on the website, and I'm so sorry about that. But you can keep writing comments on YouTube as well, and we will make sure to check them for questions as well. Okay. And as for the competition that we're going to have, you can, of course, you can write comments in there too, and we will draw one of you to win the course as well. Okay, so now I would like to tell you about something, guys, that I think could help you a lot if you are struggling in your language learning, and if you maybe find these ideas interesting and you think this, this could be a way to learn a language, like systematically by having my own plan, but maybe you don't quite know how to do it or how to set up your plan. And that's what I can actually help you with really well. And I'm so excited to be finally launching this in English because I have been helping Slovaks with my advice and courses for 2 years now, and it's been always received with great feedback. And now I can finally help English-speaking people also create their perfect method for learning a language and keep at it. This is the most important thing. I would like to present to you my brand new video course, which is called the Language Master. And it's a video course, meaning it's a login that you receive from my website. And on my website, I have all these videos prepared for you where I can show you exactly how you can create your method and how you can learn using all these methods that I've been using and that work really well. It's divided into 9 modules. Altogether, I have 50 videos with very detailed explanations. I think it's really foolproof. It's really, really clear with very detailed instructions on how you can use these new methods, apps, and programs. It's a language course which is basically tailored to your needs. That means that it's not a course which tells you, okay, first lesson French, we do this and that. It tells you how you can find those resources and how you can turn them into your best method. You basically pick 3 priorities from the 9 modules. That means listening, speaking, writing, grammar, etc. And in the next 2 months, after watching this course, you will concentrate on these 3 areas in order to improve them. You will try to pick your best methods based on listening to my videos. It's very simple. You just listen to me, see what is out there, and then you go like, podcasts sound interesting. YouTube, not such a big fan. You just pick whatever you like. I believe that this is the best way to pick the right methods because our brain knows what is best for us. And we don't need to run a complicated test to find out whether we will learn well in this way or not. And then you create your learning plan. During watching the videos, you can use a worksheet, which is also available there. You can print it like the one in the picture, or you can just have it in a digital form and write notes into it by just using a document. And in this way, you will not forget anything later on because you will have your notes. I think it's pretty important to watch things by writing down notes because otherwise we tend to forget very easily. And in this way, you learn how you can learn languages really from the comfort of your home. This is how the videos look. One of the cameras is like this. I am basically presenting to a group of people. It was shot here in Bratislava for expats and Slovaks trying to learn foreign languages. And now it's put all on camera, so you have a lifetime access. You can watch it anytime, repeatedly. If you have any questions, then you can ask the questions below those videos, and I always try to reply within a few days, so that if you have any questions, you can get my feedback right away, very easily. And there is also a special chat for sharing your experience and achievements. If you change something in your language learning and what results you got, so that we as a community can be happy with you. I think this is quite important too. And that's not all. This is just the main part of the course. Now there's also very cool bonuses which I would like to introduce to you as well. The first is so-called instructional videos, where I show you very detailed examples of how some of the methods that I mentioned in the course work in practice. For example, you may be surprised to see couchsurfing in there and you go like, wait, but there's a traveler website, right, for people to travel. But actually, it's a really cool resource for people who come to your city and speak your language. And there is a really cool way how you can find them easily, write to them, and have speaking conversations for free. I think this is really cool because this is the way that I spoke about in Spanish. This is how I learned Spanish, because I spoke to people that was natural. It was not a lesson with a tutor, but a friend from Mexico who went shopping with me. And I think this is really so much more important to learn a language like this, and so much more efficient. Or for example, italki. Many of you, I'm sure, know it well. Some of you maybe use the website or even teach as italki tutors. I think it's a great website which helps language learners enormously. And in this video, I can tell you how you can pick the best teachers and how you can make the best out of these lessons. So in these instructional videos, we will get into the details of these apps. The second bonus that comes with the course is the various language resources. So the main part of the course tells you how you can find these things. But in this part, I will actually send you to individual websites which we are collecting with our team and with our students from previous courses. And whenever someone recommends some resources to me, I put it in there, and I try to tell other people that this is a really cool website to watch TV in Russian or to listen to podcasts in French, etc. So you have the resources in there. So far, or right now, there are resources for English, German, Spanish, French, Italian, and Russian. But we would like to continue growing the database, and depending on the languages that you guys need, we would like to add new resources in there. So far in Slovakia, these are the languages that Slovaks like to learn. They also learn others, but not so much. So if many of you would like to have some resources for Arabic, then I will definitely ask around with my polyglot friends and try to add as many as possible. And the third bonus, which I think is also pretty cool, is 5 exclusive talks, which cannot be found anywhere else online, of 5 really well-known polyglots. I'm pretty sure that all of you know at least one person in the picture, because many of them are super famous. If you've watched some polyglots on YouTube, then you've definitely stumbled upon Luca Lampariello, Benny Lewis from Fluent in 3 Months. Steve Kaufman has a really amazing YouTube channel. Richard Simcott is one of the best-known polyglots who's been learning, I don't know, more than 15 languages. He never says the number, but it's just incredible. Like, his language skills are really, really stunning. And Judith Meyer, maybe you know her as well. She was the main organizer of the Polyglot Gathering in the first 3 years in Berlin. And she is also really, really cool. Like, she knows at least 15 languages, I think, on a very decent level. So these guys accepted my invitation to Bratislava last year, and I held a special event for Slovaks. We had 500 people that listened to their talks, and we put it on camera, and now you can enjoy these exclusive talks as one of the bonuses in the video course. So I think that even this bonus will be a great one, even by itself, without the rest of the video course. And finally, we have a special bonus, but this is only accessible for the first 30 of you. And I will tell you in a second where you can order the course if you'd like to do it, because the first 30 people who are going to order now or tonight are going to get a special 25-page ebook, which I wrote about how to watch series and to do it effectively for language learning. You will find everything you need about watching series for language learning in this book. There is an example of how the book looks on the right. So as you can see, it's pretty colorful with a lot of examples. And I give you examples of 50 concrete series that I recommend for language learning, and I tell you a little bit about them. So I think it's really a great ebook. Slovaks love it. They say that they finally know how to watch series, whether to watch with subtitles, whether to combine it, how to do it with the audio, etc., where to find the series for free, etc., etc. So for the first 30 orders, we also have this special bonus in here, which I think you will love. And now I'm sure you're asking yourself, okay, how much does this all cost and where can I get it, right? So let me summarize it for you. First of all, I'll tell you how much these things are actually worth, because this is going to save you seriously years of going to courses. If you have been doing it inefficiently, then you would probably continue for many more years if you don't do something differently, right? And you can save yourself all that if you follow a few simple tips that I provide in my course. So the video course itself is worth 400 euros, but don't worry, this is not the price that you would have to pay in order to get it. You're going to have a very special price instead. The instructional videos, which are a bonus in there, which show you exactly where and how you do it on the website. It's going to save you hundreds of hours to figure it out all yourself. Also with some more complex programs such as Anki, for example, I will tell you exactly how I work with it. That's worth 50 euros. And then the language resources, which are in there, are worth at least 50 euros as well. The 5 exclusive talks are worth 100 euros at least. And the ebook itself, Watch and Learn, which is available for 30 people, is worth 650 euros. Now, when we count it all together, that's a huge amount. I know 650 euros is definitely not little, but this is not the price that you would have to pay to get it if you're interested in my know-how in details forever. Instead, the price for you is just 137 euros. And guys, I honestly think this is a great deal. I'm not saying this to you because I am the one selling this course, of course, but I honestly believe that this course can help you a lot in your language learning. I don't just think, I know it because I've tested it in Slovakia. More than 2,000 people have seen it already, and they love it. I receive so many emails from happy users of this video course every single day, and they just tell me I've changed their language learning forever, and that's what makes me happiest. So if you'd like to give it a try, feel free to do it. Check out the website, which you can use now if you just type languagementoring.com/online. This is, you can see it in the top right corner. If you just go to this website, or if you are watching inside my website, so not on YouTube, and you refresh this website, then there should be a button now. Hopefully, without any technical problems, you should see it in there. But even if you don't worry, because if you go to the web to the URL address that you see in the top right corner, then you can order the course right away. One more thing I would like to tell you, or a few more things, is first of all, it's helped really hundreds of people. I'm so confident that this will help other people out there because I know it does. And these stories of the ladies, just like the ones in the picture, are the ones that actually make me do this work and do it so happily. Because like Emma, for example, in the picture on the top, she really wrote to me, I changed her life. She's so sweet. An 18-year-old girl was bad at English at school. And then she started learning using my methods. And she said the teacher noticed a huge difference right away. And we saw a difference when we listened to her English before and after. It was really a huge improvement. And then she learned Russian in like 3 months, but really fluently. I couldn't believe it. She just started learning languages like crazy. I think she's working on her Italian now and wants to learn other ones as well. So it was just amazing. Or Zuzka Peterkova, I'm sorry, this is a small typo in here. Zuzka said that her husband did not recognize her on holiday because she was always the one who would hold back and she didn't want to speak. But after attending the course, after just basically learning in a new way for 2 months, she just went for it and she wants to speak to everyone because she just loves it and loves to speak in English. Or Yizhina from the Czech Republic, she used to go to English lessons once a week for 15 years. I mean, if you are in a beginner cycle for 15 years, then something must be wrong because 15 years for learning a language is really too much. And she felt that she improved her English at least 70%. And she said that after 2 months of learning in this way, she really loved the methods that she discovered with my course. And she started applying them in a systematic way, making a chart for her own learning and just loved it totally. Now, if you are thinking like, maybe this could be interesting for me, but I'm not quite sure, then I have great news for you because you don't have to risk anything. Seriously, you can basically test the course, see if it works for you, and if it doesn't, you will get your money back. This is a guarantee I am giving you because I'm really not interested in taking money from people that I cannot help for whatever reason. I believe this helps 99% of people, but if you are in the 1% of the people that just could not work with this or doesn't help them, then feel free to write us an email and we will return you all the money that you paid. So there is nothing to risk. And again, the website, if you'd like to order right away and make sure that you make the bonus of the first 30 ebooks, which is only available for the first 30 people. We don't sell it besides that. Then go to languagementoring.com/online and you can order right away. Now, one more thing I want to tell you, because it gets even better. It's not just the video course. I'm actually even more proud of another thing that we created with my team. And I'm so excited that we can finally bring it to the international community out there. It's basically an online program where we learn together for 2 months. And it's even so much better than having the video course and the know-how itself. It's called the Autodidacts Academy, and it's going to be for the first time in English now. And wow, what a storm started here right away. I hope the electricity doesn't go away because that would be a problem for the webinar. By the way, we are starting the first academy on the 2nd of July and doing it in all of July and August until the beginning of September. And you can join us too to learn together with us in a community of people. It's all online, so don't be mistaken by the picture. These are all the people who, some of the people of the 460 people who attended it already, whom we also met in Bratislava, because I really love to meet people in my courses if it's possible. It will not be possible with people all over the world, but maybe sometimes we could meet as well in live. And we basically all create our own plans and we start learning together, which is an amazing way because we motivate each other. It's incredible how this community works. And I didn't think that it would work so well, but now that I see how these people, how much time they put into their own learning and how much they improve in just 2 months, it's really incredible. It helps me and my team as well to learn a language, not just the people that are with us in the academy. And that's why we are doing it every 2 months. And we've been doing it in Slovakia for 9 times, and now we are starting in the international community, so you can join us too. It works like this. We have a special chart where everyone writes their particular plan. So you decide you will read and speak and listen, and you will spend that much time with it every week. And then we create, so you just put it in the chart and we show you what your plan is. And then every week you are following how well you are keeping that plan. Just like the one in the picture, you see the first, second, and third week. It's in Slovak, but I think you can get by. And you see that your plan was the first column, and then the first week you did not meet it, but the second one you spent even more time with the language than you were planning, and you know that, for example, listening took you so much more time than you were planning. So it's very motivational. In this way, we keep track of our learning and we keep checking on each other, which is really, really strong because when you are learning by yourself, if you miss a day, what happens, right? Who knows? There is no consequences really. And it's so different when there's a community of 50 people, or in our case, the International Academy will be just 30 people, because we keep each other accountable and we don't let each other forget about the learning for 2 months. We have an amazing community where we share our learning, and it's fun because we like to post nice pictures such as our pets helping us learn, which is always quite fun. Or the other day Jindřiška shared how she's creating cards and working with some grammar exercises, and she totally loves it. So we are trying to support this nice feeling about learning a language. It's not like, oh, I need to learn this, it's a lot and it's a lot of drudge. Instead, we're trying to keep it nice and pleasant and try to remind ourselves how much fun this learning can be. And we also have competitions and certificates. So if you are a bit of a competitive person, you will love this because we will have a challenge who can have more conversations with each other. This is quite cool because you can talk to other people in the course online as well. And you can get a certificate. If you meet our requirements, which aren't very difficult, we will send you a digital certificate at the end. Well, we will tell you exactly how much time you spent with your language. These live conversations and webinars are the best thing. It really doesn't matter that we're not live in one place, because with the internet we can easily catch up with that online, right? And so we have little chats in little groups. For example, this was my chat in French with the two participants of the academy. And then we have webinars together almost every week, where you can go on camera as well, and you can tell us about your learning and how you've been doing. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them. So it really is a community way of learning, which is so much more effective than people learning by themselves. It really works amazingly. And this Autodidacts Academy normally costs 247 euros. But if you decide to buy the Language Master video course now, at the website, which we mentioned already, languagementoring.com/online. When you push order at the end, the button, the website will ask you two simple questions. Would you like the academy as well, or is the video course enough? And then you can decide if you want to pay the 110 extra euros or not, and decide if you would like to join us for the Autodidacts Academy, or if you would like to learn by yourself, maybe later, or in your own pace. But I can totally recommend you, like, honestly, I think that if you want to put your language learning on a different level and learn how you can learn by yourself and be totally independent as a learner, then I really, really recommend you to try this academy because it works amazingly. We have had people who came half-heartedly, like, yeah, well, I'm not very good at French, but I don't know how I should learn, but let me try. And then they got totally crazy about the learning because they found the methods that they liked, and we put the system into it, and then we check on you, make sure that you learn, and if you don't, we write you emails. So really, if you decide to go for this program, we will not let you forget about that language in July and August, which I think is the only way that will ever help you learn any language, right? So this is the offer that I really wanted to share with you guys. Don't forget that if you are interested, languagementoring.com/online, or if you refresh the website, hopefully you can see the button below this video as well. If you're watching this as a replay, then you can see the button from the beginning, no problem. And yeah, it's basically that was all I wanted to tell you about this. One more important thing that you've been waiting for is what is the present, right? That you came here, if you are watching live, I would like to give you a little ebook, and that is again available only as the present for those of you watching live today. It will be available on the website languagementoring.com/online at the top of the website for a few more hours after the webinar, so you don't need to worry if you didn't quite make it. We will keep it there so that you can download it, and it's for you. It's basically my tip on how to use flashcards to learn vocabulary, because maybe the gold list method is not good for you, maybe it's not the best. In that case, you can just create very simple flashcards like this. This is my set for Swahili. You basically just need to make some dividers into it to make sure that you put them into different categories. And then you spend 5-10 minutes a day revising the vocabulary, and it works amazingly. This way of learning is much more fun. It's much more beautiful because, you know, it's quite colorful and you can have it at home in a little box. So I think many people will love it for this reason. But in any case, the ebook is yours. It has the complex instructions on how you can use flashcards. So if you go to the website, let me show you again, languagementoring.com/online, then you can find the ebook and download it as a free gift. Okay. And now we will, of course, draw one of you who will get a free video course from both of you commenting on YouTube and those of you commenting on Facebook below the video. But before then, I would like to answer some questions. And I forgot to say one more thing. I'm also going to draw one person who has already decided to go for this and bought the video course. And if you make it by the end of the webinar, then you will be in the lottery to win a special consultation with me, which I only do in very special cases. Many people ask me for that by email. But as I said also on my website, this is not something I offer as a service, one-on-one consultation. But tonight I'm going to choose one of the people who ordered the Language Master seminar, because I know these are the most dedicated people, and it will be a great pleasure to spend an hour with you online and go through your language learning in all the details you like, and make sure that we set up your system really, really right and help you start with a new course. Okay, so let me go to the questions now. Okay, could you please tell me about methods of practicing listening and speaking? Min Tai is asking. Hope I did not mispronounce the name. I'm not good at listening and find listening and writing down what I can hear boring. Thank you for your help. Oh yes, of course it is boring. If it is boring for you, then it's not a good method. This is my general recommendation. So if it doesn't work for you, then don't do it by all means. I have a lot of tips for practicing listening and speaking, and basically it's 2 modules of the video course. So if you would like them in a lot of details, then I suggest you actually get the video course. But to answer your question, basically what you can do is listen massively without writing anything. But what I find more useful is writing down something, but not everything. Many people do the mistake or make the mistake of trying to catch all the words that they don't understand, and then it's a little bit chaotic. They don't know where it is and where they put it, etc. But if you put a little bit of system into it, for example, that if you, let's say, watch a TV series episode and you will just write down 5 words from each episode, that's a bit of system, and it's not such a big goal, it's doable, then I think it's not going to be as boring. Especially if you think of a way what you do with those words afterwards. This is the most important thing. Will you put them into your flashcards, or will you write them into your gold list book? Because if you just write them down on a piece of paper, you will not learn them. I mean, forget it. This doesn't help at all. If you don't do the second part of doing something with the vocabulary, it will not help. And as for speaking, I think the best way, really, really the best way of getting vocabulary from speaking is having a tutor or a teacher who listens to you when you speak and writes down all the mistakes that you make, and then gives you a list of those words. These are the best italki tutors I've ever had, those that do that, because then I can process the vocabulary and put it into my vocabulary list, etc. Right? So, Min, I hope I answered some of your questions. And again, if you'd like more details, then I really think that the video course can give you more answers. Okay, Jason Fishburne asked me, what is my procedure on day 1 with a new language and where do I start? By the way, Jason, thank you for this question. I would just like to remind everyone, my video course, Language Master, is not meant for complete beginners. I should have told you this because it will help you immensely in language learning, even if you are starting. But if you want just one thing to help you learn a language, then I have a different course which is not yet available in English, how to start learning a language from scratch. And it's called The Key to Languages. And this Language Master is meant for people who have some basics in the language, okay? Just to make that clear, I don't want to disappoint anyone. Because, for example, if I tell you, you need to start massively listen and let's say, read, then if you're just beginning in the language, you cannot, right? I mean, it's impossible. There's different strategies there. So getting back to your question, Jason, when I start on day 1, I always do it differently with every single language, and I like to experiment. So, for example, with Swahili, my first attempt was going with the Teach Yourself book, and I go through back translations. This is something I already hinted at with the Asimo book, but I do it slightly differently. I go through the introductory chapter in the book, and I write it down in a notebook in Slovak. I go word by word, use the dictionary, and rewrite these sentences into Slovak. And then I keep saying them from Slovak into Swahili so many times that I can say the text almost fluently. I cannot do it in one sitting. I usually take 3 days or 4 days to do this. And I choose short, simple texts where I understand absolutely everything. But this has proved to me a really amazing, really, really effective way how to do it. Another thing what you can do is also speak from day 1. I personally am not such a big fan of speaking from the very first day, but I like to start speaking from the very beginning. I mean, from beginnings of learning a language. And it's also possible if you have a tutor who asks you simple questions and you try to basically create your vocabulary by asking yourself what you can say as a reply, right? And this is the phrases that you write down, and then you put them into your vocabulary methods, and yeah, in this way you can start speaking from the beginning. I have just received the information that 21 of you have already bought the course, which is amazing. So we still have 9 more special bonuses to go. The ebook Watch and Learn, the 25 really detailed ebook on how to watch TV series, is available if you still make it with the order. And we have 9 more ebooks to give out to the orders. So if you are interested in this, I really suggest you think about it quickly. Now, let's see. David Kurnik actually asked me, did you use subtitles on movies on TV? Yeah, I go really deeply in the ebook. Some believe they are just distraction for language learning. So movies are always a popular topic, right? And subtitles. What I recommend in general is watching either without subtitles or with subtitles in that language that you're watching. So if I'm watching a Spanish series, I could put on Spanish subtitles or no subtitles at all. And I know that many people are super scared of not having any subtitles because they think that they will not understand anything, or that they will be totally lost. And maybe they watch one episode and they think, I don't understand enough. So that means my level is not good enough and I will stop watching, right? This is a mistake. My experience has been after, of course, when I was on a, let's say, an A2 level, like a more advanced beginner, let's say, not intermediate for sure. My experience was that I just had to start watching regularly, even without subtitles, and then I started understanding within a few weeks. Really, I think it's something in our mind which tells us after the first episode that, this is too difficult for me, I don't understand, everybody understands and I don't. It's not true. You just have to give it the time and continue watching. I definitely do not recommend watching with your subtitles. That means I wouldn't watch with Slovak subtitles, because what my brain does is just goes and reads the subtitles and is not interested in listening to the sound anymore. I think our brain tends to pick what is easier for it. So if reading in Slovak is easier, then it's not going to be bothered too much with listening to the material. That's why we need to make it slightly more difficult for the brain, and then it's going to learn more from this learning, right? So I hope I answered your question. Okay, Sarah Alsubaye. I'm sorry if I mispronounced again. Lydia, my question is, can I master a language in 1 month if I'm on a B2 level? Okay, Sarah, what do you mean by master a language? Because if you're on a B2 level, like seriously, not just on paper, but seriously, I would say you have mastered a language up to a point. The question always is what you would like to achieve. And many people are trying to go up and up to the highest level possible. But seriously, guys, I think this is not important or not necessary. B2 level, like a seriously good B2 level, is perfectly enough for you to read anything, watch anything, speak to anyone about anything, really. Of course, you cannot have a discussion about, I don't know what, rocket science, but can you do that in your mother tongue? Anyway, B2 is the perfect level to aim for, I would say, but really a comfortable fluency level. For me, the question always is, if someone comes to me in the street, can I have a comfortable conversation with them? Am I comfortable in answering their questions? Am I comfortable in understanding them? Or is there any trouble? If it's really easy to communicate and I can explain everything I need to and just say it right away, then this is my comfortable fluency and I don't necessarily need to work on a higher level. Many people are trying to achieve C1, C2, but this is really a level meant for translators, interpreters, teachers. I don't think people need it normally. It's where you learn all these idioms and, I don't know, all these special expressions that many native speakers don't need as well. So Sarah, I think you can achieve a comfortable fluency level in a month or two, for sure. If you're on a B2 level already, just keep it. Make sure you kind of cram it, all this contact with the language into a short period of time, and it will improve massively. Like you will see how much more sure of yourself you will see when you do that. Okay, let me see another question. Kiki is asking, how do you practice or maintain all the languages you don't forget? Well, that's basically the island metaphor where I was trying to explain, where you need to get across the last wave and then you don't totally forget them. Of course, you need to have some contact with the language. You cannot just forget about it for 5 years and then speak it fluently. But it really depends on whether you achieve the comfortable fluency and keep it for a few months, and then you can keep it and refresh it almost any time. If you don't, then if you just go up very quickly, achieve B2, but like just achieve it, then you're going to go quickly down and you will seriously lose the language very, very quickly, which I think is a pity. So I don't maintain them very actively, but whenever I can use it, I try to. I have friends who are Polish speakers, Russian speakers, Spanish speakers, German speakers. So I try to communicate whenever I can. And also, I like to read books in other languages. This is something I like to do. I almost don't ever read in Slovak. I find it more interesting to pick a translation of a book in a different language and read it then. Nadezhda Korobko is writing, hi, I'm from Belarus. I love you, Lydia. Oh, that's sweet. Thank you, Nadezhda. Thank you so much for everything you do. Just listening to you, I want to start learning. That's cool. You should use it for sure and start learning right away. Not forget about it and not leave it for later, right? Motivation is very important. Do you have the same levels in all languages? No, definitely not. How long does it take you to get advanced level in a new language you learn? No one ever, not one polyglot has the same level in all the languages. And there is not a living polyglot on this planet who could have all their languages on the top high level, not all at the same time and not for a long time. Most polyglots will tell you they can keep 3, 4 languages on a C level, which means like super good, like comfortable where you understand a lot of extra words, not just the everyday words, but also some really rarely used words. But keeping them on a C level is of course more difficult because you need to keep reading a lot. Keeping a language on a B2 level, I think, is possible if you get on a comfortable fluency level. And yeah, then it just takes, as I said, a little bit of reading, a little bit of listening and speaking. Nothing too systematic or too difficult. And how long it takes me, I usually take 2 years to learn a language. But I have to say, of course, that I've only learned European languages so far, and I wouldn't like to say that you can do the same for very difficult languages such as Japanese or Chinese, where I personally have a respect for people learning these languages. I think it takes a lot more energy, a lot more dedication. It's definitely possible, I don't doubt it, but it probably does not happen as quickly as with a European speaking European languages, right? So, yeah, that's my answer to the question. Danilo is asking, what do you recommend when we have to study a different alphabet like Swahili or Russian? That's a great question. Swahili does not have a different alphabet. As you can see in the book, it's basically the same, the Latin script. It did not take over the Arabic script, although 30% of the words are of Arabic origin. But Russian, for example, it's interesting because many people think this is such a big problem to learn a new script, right? They are thinking, how do I do it? Do I need an app? Do I need a teacher? How do I do it? And it's so simple. I like to look at it as a little game where I have to decode the language because let's say I have this little card which tells me which letter is which letter in my language and in Russian. And then I just try to read a text and try to decipher what these words are, right? It's quite funny because there's a lot of international Russian words such as, I don't know, smoothie or I don't know, I will not think of any international words right now, but you actually recognize them when you see them, right? And the more you do this little game of deciphering, the easier it happens. It really did not have any problem with it. I spent like 2 days trying to playing around with the letters and then reading slowly, slowly, and faster, 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 up to the point where when I started reading massively, like a lot, when I decided that today I'm going to concentrate on my reading and every day I will read for 20 minutes, within a few days, I could see my reading getting totally fluent, no problem at all, and really, it's no big issue. So all you need to do is practice reading in this way. We are almost at the end of the webinar. I will not be able to answer all the questions, but I see now that we have 27 orders right now, so 3 more to go to get the ebook Watch and Learn. And I also need to make sure that I can see one of you who will win, just a second, who will win the special consultation from all of these people who have ordered so far. I see there's Raul, Susanna, Stephen, Jeanette, Lorian, Matt, Lisa, Tony, Jeanette, Paul. Welcome to the course, guys. I'm really excited that you decided to join right away. I think that you will definitely not regret if you paid by card and you already have the login in your email and you can start watching the videos right away. But before we get there, let me just tell you 2 more things. And that is who gets to win the free video course, because I told you that it really pays off to write comments during the whole webinar and to write whatever questions you like. I will try to answer the questions after the webinar so that you get your answers, guys. But now let me just draw one of you, the lucky one who gets the free video course. And if it's someone who has already won the video course, then we can upgrade you to the academy, or we can think of a very special a very special prize for you to win instead of the video course. So let me get to the website and just see all the comments that have been added here. I will ask my assistants to write me a name of someone in the YouTube channel. So just pick someone, scroll and pick one person. And I'm going to do the same in the, oh wow, 142 comments, that's cool. Let me reorder them. And basically I will just scroll. I will not be looking. I know this is not perfectly fair, or maybe you think it's not perfectly fair because you don't see it. But basically I will just click all of them. Right. And I will just stop scrolling at one point, and it stops at Nicholas Coter. So Nicholas, if you are watching still, congratulations on getting the Language Master video course for free. Please write to us on Facebook from this nickname, from this Facebook name, and we will send you your login details right away after this webinar. Okay, Nicholas Coter. And his comment, the one that won, is I should definitely try the system you used with German and about which you talked earlier. That's cool, Nicolas. So now you will have all the know-how to do that. If you did not buy the video course, if you did, then we will think of something special for you. And from YouTube, my assistants picked Agnieszka Ojżanowska. So Agnieszka, congratulations. And we will also send you the video course if you write us an email from the Google account, the YouTube account, which has your name in it. Okay? So I think this is a very pleasant part of the webinar where we are giving out little presents. And now I want to pick one more person, the one who will get a free consultation with me online, or well, actually even live. If you happen to be in Bratislava anytime soon, I would be very happy to meet you in person as well. And this person will be picked from among all those who decided to go into action right away and buy the video course. And I will again pick randomly from among all these people. Let me see, and I stop the screen on Andrew Roberts. Right, Andrew, congratulations. I can't wait to have a consultation with you. And I hope it will be helpful for you. We can look at your plan, we can set it up together, and we can make sure that it really fits your language situation perfectly. So Andrew Roberts, congratulations on the free consultation with me, and everyone else, congratulations on the webinars, on the video courses as well. This is just to remind you the final offer, which is available now, not only during the webinar, but also afterwards. And it will be available for the next 3 days as well at languagementoring.com/online. And as I said, you can give it a go, you can give it a try, see if this way of learning a language will be something for you. If not, you have the possibility to return the course, as is normal with all online courses, because you never know what you're buying, right? So you can have a look at it and then decide whether this way of learning is something for you or not. And that would be all, folks. I hope I haven't forgotten anything. If you have any questions, you can still write a question below this video. And as I said, in the next days, I will try to go through the questions and answer them if possible. You can keep following me on languagementoring.com if you do not speak Slovak. If you do, then it's jazykový mentoring.sk, which you probably know if you are Slovak. And we are also active on Facebook and Instagram, so feel free to join us. We have a YouTube channel as well. The English one does not have many videos yet because we are just starting working on it. So far, we've been really active preparing videos for Slovaks and also running the whole courses in Slovak. But if you would like to follow us, then we would definitely like to stay in touch. And by we, I just don't mean myself, but also my amazing team, Veronika, Katka, Sashka, Dashka, Vlado, who are helping me with everything in the background, and they've been amazing also with the whole preparation of this video course, which was not easy to translate into English as much as we thought at the beginning. So my great thanks goes to you girls as well for all your amazing help. And I'm afraid that will be it. I don't want to keep you there any longer. I will try to answer the questions, as I said. And let me just tell you guys at the end that I really wish this webinar, if it left something in you, like if you are thinking maybe there is a different way of learning language, maybe I did not do it completely correctly, or maybe it can be done in a more efficient way, then please use this motivation for sure. I think this webinar itself gave quite a lot of know-how because it explained the way that polyglots see language learning. It's about the approach. It's about the, the change in the mind from the typical, please teach me, teacher, because I'm paying you, to I want to learn by myself and I want to discover my own way and I want to create my perfect method and I can do it. Because you totally can. It really does not have to anything to do with talent or your abilities to travel or whatever else. So if you think that there is a language you would like to learn and you haven't got it to the fluent level so far, then please do so, because otherwise, how is it ever going to change, right? Tony Robbins has this amazing quote which says, if you want to experience things that other people experience, then watch other people who have done it before and just copy whatever they've done and you can do it too. And I honestly believe in that, because if other people can do it, why not you? If 600 people can come to Polyglot Gathering and they speak a bunch of languages, why couldn't you speak a bunch of languages? And many of them were not able to speak a foreign language up to their adulthood. So it doesn't have anything to do with talent, seriously. Guys, I wish you all of luck with your language learning. I hope we stay in touch. Please feel free to write me an email whenever you like. I really love reading them, even if I don't answer right away. It sometimes takes me a bit longer, but I'm really happy about them. And yeah, wish you lots of luck in your language learning and have a great day, evening, afternoon, whatever. Bye-bye.